In today's video, we're going to be testing three versions of local large language models. One is Deepseek R1, the 8B parameter model. The other is Llama 3.1 and finally Llama 3.2. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be passing in a prompt that provides this customer interaction note, which is for a fictitious company called ABC Car Rental. And we're going to be asking these models to categorize this data into one of the following categories. Is it a billing issue? Is it a reservation change? Is it a vehicle issue? Is it a general inquiry? And I think I've even included customer complaint. These are fairly straightforward pieces of text. I don't think they will have too much issue, but the things we're going to be testing for is, can the model follow the prompts to be able to output a structured JSON payload that we can then reformat back into a table, and rather, can we give a prompt good enough for that? And I'll be showing you how I do that with Llama. So let's get started. So in this tutorial, we are going to be using Llama. If you don't have that one installed, hit the download button. It's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. The models we're going to be playing with are Deepseek R1, like I said, Llama 3.2 and Llama 3.1, which are these ones here, this one, and this one. And we're going to be using the Python package Llama. And I like going to the PyPy page because it does give me some boilerplate code to get started. So first thing we need to do is we need to import this data. This file is called ground_truth_input.csv. And to import that, I'm literally just going to say import pandas as PD, and we're just going to say the data frame. So our input data frame is equal to PD dot reader CSV. Okay, and what did I say that was called again? Ground truth import. Okay, so ground truth, just type that one out. Is it called ground truth import? Yeah, input. Input, and that's a .csv. Hit Shift Enter on that. And what we've got now is we now have our case number, which we'll use as a unique identifier, our customer interaction note, and what we think or what we believe to be the true category. We won't be showing the exact category matched to the customer interaction note, but what we will be doing is we will be showing the customer interaction note and providing a list of those categories. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to grab a distinct list of those categories. So we'll just go category and we'll say something like unique, which is really nice. And we can even just maybe convert that to a list. Okay, make sure I get my parentheses the right way around. So these are the options. And what we can even do is we can probably even do something like a .join, and that will just give us a comma separated list, and I can pass that in to our local large language models as an example of the categories it can choose from. So let's get started. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the Llama PyPy page where you can pip install Llama. I've already done that step. And in here, I'm just going to grab this boilerplate code so we can get started playing around with Llama. First thing I do is I don't actually need this chat response. And to really simplify our code, I'm just going to say, okay, response equals chat model Llama 3.2. Now, Llama 3.2, it's only a 3 billion parameter model. It says it's good for things like following instructions, summarization, prompt rewriting. So could be pretty good. I might start with Llama 3.1, which is a much larger model, 8 billion parameters, and it's good for a whole heap of different stuff. And it's probably a good middle ground between Llama 3.2 and Deepseek R1. So where to from here? So Llama 3.1 is what we want to use. Now we've got a content here, and this is basically where we want to input our prompts. What I might do is to make things a bit simpler, I might just put the keyword prompt there. And you're probably wondering, well, Adam, where's your prompt? I'm going to need to create a prompt. Now, before we go and loop through the data frame, let's actually just go ahead and get an example. Just an example, we'll mock this out to start with, and then from there we will sort of loop through and build on it. So the prompt is going to be, we'll call this one customer interaction note, because this makes a bit more sense in a moment, but we'll call this one, customer interaction underscore note is equal to that one. We'll call this one up here our categories. And the reason I'm doing this is it's going to allow us to do some string manipulation and do an F string where we can string these, join these things together. And so what I mean by that is what we now have is we now have our categories, which look like this, and we have our customer interaction note, which looks like that. Now, the actual prompting part can be as simple as given the below customer interaction note return a category. And then I can say something like customer interaction note, and I can pass in through an F string. So make sure we put an F at the start. I can pass in the interaction note into curly braces, and then I can say valid categories, okay? And then I can pass in the categories. And what that's going to look like is if we were to shift enter on that, we can actually go ahead and just print that out, make it look a bit nicer. And that's what it looks like. So given the below customer okay, that's not even spelled right, Adam. Interaction note, return a single category. Customer interaction note, the customer called regarding unexpected charge on their invoice. Okay, unexpected charge. So valid categories might be a billing issue, right? Not reservation, not vehicle. So I've kept this really simple. And the reason for that is we're going to layer it up. We're going to get our prompt right. We're going to try to get all 3 models working on all 20 all the time. And then we're going to layer up from there. So if you remember back here, we sort of had something called prompt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that keyword because it doesn't exist, right? So that's going to fail. It's going to say there is no prompt is not defined. So what we're going to do is we are going to define prompt, and we're just going to say prompt is equal to this string here. And all that's done is it's assigned this bit of text here to the prompt. And you're probably wondering, well, actually, when you loop through each of those sort of customer interactions, you can start to see how prompt gets updated with that information. So now we've got a single prompt. Let's see how well, without too much extra effort, Llama 3.1 does with generating a single category, and we're hoping for billing issue. Double check that. Yeah, billing issue. Okay, that's running now. Okay, so a couple of things. It looks like it's got billing issue correct. But it's gone into a whole heap of other information. Now, I didn't give it too much information. I did say return a single category. I might just add at the end of this, only valid JSON, no other text. Valid JSON is equal to, okay, and we'll put in there, sort of, what are we going to say? We're going to say category, okay. And the category is going to be a string. And you'll notice here, we've got a couple of issues. So we're using curly braces. Because this is an F string, we need to escape those. Otherwise, it's going to think we're passing in another variable. So we put double curly braces. And because we are trying to use single quotation, just to be extra sure, I'm going to use single at the top and at the bottom here. So that'll still work, which would be great. So now if we print this out, this is what we are telling our local large language model. So we're telling it the valid JSON, and we're going to run that one and see what we get. So this time round, we've got, yeah, perfect billing issue. So shift enter on that, give ourselves a bit more space. That's looking really nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do from here is let's quickly, so this is 3.1, this is the sort of middle of the ground. What we'll do very quickly is we will test a couple of other models. Let's see how 3.2 does. And remember, 3.2 is a much smaller model, so it might not behave as well as 3.1. So let's go ahead and run that. And you notice there it's as easy as just updating the model. Okay, so a couple of things. It's correct, but again, it's sort of missed the part here where it sort of has to be valid JSON. If I was to try to pass that directly, it would probably fail. I could do some post-processing, so not a huge deal, but ideally you do kind of want it to follow the instructions. So I'm running that again. Okay, this time around it's saying here is the Python function to determine the category of the interaction. Okay, so it's doing a whole bunch of funky category keys for word and categories. Yeah, that's a bit weird. Okay, shift enter one more time. Yeah, okay, this time around it got it correct. So what I might do is just very quickly, if you look here at the message, it's a Python list. And what we can actually do is we can actually pass in a system prompt. So a system prompt is as simple as changing the role to system. And our system prompt can say something as simple as you are a customer interaction classifier, only return JSON, no other text. See if that helps. It might not. Yep, that's worked really well. Okay, well, let's knock it out. 2 for 2, that's pretty good. 3, 4, I am keen. Let's have a look, see if it does it 10 in a row. Okay, if it does 10 in a row, I'm going to be satisfied that system prompts are a good thing. All right, for I in range, okay, let's give us 10. Alrighty, so 10 of those. And let's go ahead for I in range 10, shift enter on that. Okay, billing issue. Ah, that's cool. Okay, yeah, I've had this happen before actually, where I ran something 10 times and 80% of the time it's come back with the same response, but 2 of the time, so 20% of the time it said something else, which is interesting. Because I'm now getting to the point where I'm sometimes tempted to sort of, I'm thinking out loud here, which is very dangerous. But this is Llama 3.2. Let's go back to Llama 3.1, which is that bit of a larger model. Let's see how that one does. I'm kind of quietly confident that'll be perfect every time. Let's have a look. Okay, billing issue. Yeah, that's looking really nice. Okay, yeah, perfect. 10 out of 10. Very nice. Now let's throw DeepSeek at this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop DeepSeek in there. We're going to shift enter on that. This one might take a bit longer. Okay, so this one takes ages actually. So I'm on a MacBook Air M2, 24 gig of RAM, which is pretty good, but it is an Air, right? So it's not really designed to run these more deeper thinking models. So I'm gonna fast forward this part, and I'll come back in a moment. Okay, so it has returned, and look, it's set to run 10 times, which isn't great because that's going to take forever. But yeah, come back with billing issue, which is a good sign. Now, again, billing issue, awesome. I'm going to stop this because it is going to take a while to sort of run through. But let's go ahead and let me now take us to the point where we are going to test all 10, and we'll do some comparison for ground truth stuff. Because the two things we're trying to test is, one, we were asking for a structured output. Does it give us valid JSON that we can then manipulate and sort of work with? And two, does it give us what we believe to be the correct answer? And I say what we believe to be the correct answer because you can give 3 humans the same question and one of them might disagree with the other 2. It's not that uncommon. I would like to think the ground truth, or the text that I've sort of formulated here, the mock-up data, is fairly one for one. The only category that sometimes stumps it, rightfully so, I believe, is customer complaint, because that's more of a general category, which isn't a general inquiry, but the customer is quite upset. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll turn this back to 3.2, which is a smaller model because it's much quicker. You can sort of run 3.2 and off it goes. And there's that exact example. So 2 of them did come back as customer complaint, which is quite interesting. I'm going to run that one more time just for funsies. Yeah, 3 of them, 4 of them. Yeah, so that's interesting. So yeah, the customer called regarding an unexpected charge on their invoice. Yeah, I guess you could complain about that, hey. Okay, so a couple of things we are testing for. 1, is it going to return valid JSON? 2, is it going to pick a category from our list of categories? And 3, is it the right category? That's the 3 things we're testing for. Let's run this through for Llama 3.1. So to get to that, what we're going to do is we have our data frame. Okay, so create a new cell there. And what we're going to do is we are going to loop through that data frame. So what I can say is for row in df.iterRows. Okay, this is a generator function. So as you loop through it, it's going to reveal that row. And if we print out the row, I'll show you what that kind of looks like. And we'll put the brakes on straight after. And that's what the row looks like. If you look closely, we've kind of got, if you look at the type, I can type here. Basically what it's presenting is a tuple. And so what we can say is we don't actually need the index 012, so we can actually put an underscore there to say we're not using that one. And now when I print out the row, we're actually getting a pandas series, which is really useful because with the pandas series, what we can do is we can select any one of these. So we can actually select, say for example, square brackets. We've got the customer interaction note, and that's really useful, right? Because now we've got the customer interaction note, and you're probably wondering, well, couldn't you then just, yes, you can. You can just take that customer interaction node. We'll just assign it to this variable. So it's identical to the one we just created. And then we could just create our prompt directly below. And what that means now, okay, is what I can do is I can print, just for testing, I can print out that customer interaction. Directly after, we'll print out some lines to show where we're sort of splitting those up. So times 20 lines. And what we now have is we now have each of these. What are we printing? No, we want to print the prompt at them. So let's print the prompt. And there we have it. So now we have each of these, we have a prompt. And so every prompt is different. So you can read this, customer interaction, customer inquired about availability of SUVs next week, and valid categories, billing issue, reservation, vehicle issues. No, that's a general inquiry. Okay, I think it is anyway. So where to from here? Now, we're kind of in a loop and we're looping through each one. So what we can do is for testing, and we're not going to do this when we run the whole thing, but for testing, what we'll do is we'll package this up. Let's have a look. So we've got response, we've got a system prompt, and we've got our response here. And we're currently printing the response, but we don't necessarily want to print it. We maybe want to assign it to sort of maybe call it output underscore response. Okay, and so what that's going to look like now is when we go ahead and we run, say, this one, we now have a variable at the end of it which is called output response. It is just a string, but it is in a format, JSON format. And what does that actually mean? So I can do something like JSON, import JSON.loads, okay, and now that is a JSON object. What does a JSON object actually mean in Python? Well, if I was to check its type, it's going to be a dictionary, okay? And what's useful about dictionaries is I can then, similar to before with the pandas series, I can now ask for the category. Ask for the category, and now we have general inquiry. Okay, so let's get back to it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to keep things fairly raw to begin with. We are just going to collect each of the responses. So we'll clean up our code a little bit. So we'll go ahead and we'll make sure our import alarm is at the very start. We're doing this looping, and then we're going to add in this response part, and we're going to have an output response. And so what that's going to look like is get rid of these ones for now, come down a little bit, give ourselves a bit of space. And within that same loop, we're going to loop through and we're going to pass in our prompt for each. And then we're going to want to collect that information. So we've got our customer interaction because that's part of our row, but the other thing we probably want to grab hold of is maybe our case number. Case number seems important. I'm just thinking out loud, what's a good way to think about this? We've got a series, okay. If I had a list of series, could I make that into a data frame? That's an interesting concept. So let's imagine I had a list of those rows, and that's just those series, right? Can I just do a pd.data frame on that one? Yeah, okay, cool. So what I could do is I can actually just add in the model and what the model thinks the output is. So that's going to look like this. So I've got access to the row, okay? And if I say something like row, give it a name, something like the model, okay? No, I'll say output response for now because we know the model. Let's not get too carried away. This is just a tutorial. You can run all this. You don't need to watch me run it all. So model output can just be this one here. We don't need that one anymore. And then what we'll do is we'll create a list, okay? We'll give this one all rows, okay? That's going to be blank to start out with. And then what we'll do is we'll just append those rows back, okay? There's probably a nice way to do this, but this is just a nice easy one. We'll just append a row. And then what we'll do is we will actually go ahead and we will we print this out? Let's just go ahead and run it. It shouldn't take too long. Printing it out would be kind of useful, but we can just grab it here at the very end. So what we're going to do is we're going to say pd.dataframe all rows, shift enter on that. And then what we have is we now have the original case number, our mock customer interaction note, the category, and then the output response, okay? And what's useful about this is we now have the ability to then determine how well did this thing actually run, because there is three things we are testing. One, is that valid JSON data? And looking at this at a glance, it really does look like it is. Two, is it a valid category? And again, at a glance, it does look like it is, and we will write some Python code to figure that out for sure. And number three is how well did it go at actually getting the right category? Because if I'm looking at this billing issue, billing issue, the customer wants to extend their rental period. It thinks that's a general inquiry, but there was an option there for reservation change, so I got that one wrong. Vehicle issue, they've locked that in as customer complaint, which is my own fault. I did include that one. I'm going to let them away with that. Customer is unhappy. I think the large language model is more accurate than my ground truth, which sometimes happens. Let's have a look. So next one's right. So let's go ahead and let's clean this up just a little bit. You can start to see where we're going with this, and let's just finish this off. So what we've got here is we have our responses, and this is sort of our raw output response. And what I might do from there is I might make sure we've got JSON loaded, so import JSON. And then I might quickly do a little sort of try, and then we might say JSON response is equal to JSON.loads. We're going to load in this one here. Okay. Where are we? JSON.loads. That makes sense. And then we're going to try to capture the category. That might fail. And if it does, that's okay, because we'll just skip over it. So if that fails, we'll say accept, and we'll just pass on that one. We'll make JSON response equals none. And then we'll just make sure in our row, so finally, it doesn't have to be a finally, but it can be a finally. So we're going to try something, we're going to accept, and then we're going to go finally. And then finally, we're going to say, well, our row JSON response, okay, is going to be equal to our JSON response. All right, so let's go ahead and while we're here, let's print out, just so we know where we are in the process, each of those. So off it goes. So far, all of those appear to have converted over to JSON, which is really nice. And then if I have a look at that output, this is actually looking really nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call that output just for funsies, and I'm going to have a look at that one. And then what we're going to say is we're going to ask the question, is the category equal to, in our output, the JSON response? Okay, because if it is, then we've successfully, that's not bad. That's not bad. Okay, so 17 out of 20 appear to be correct. I'm really quite happy with that. So if we go ahead and I made it equal category, that's not right. Category result, and we'll just quickly see if it gives us anything different when I run it a second time. We had 17 a moment ago, and this is the weird thing about these models. I'm finding more and more. So we've got 1 false, 2 false, 3, 4, 5 false, 6 false, 7 false. Wow. Okay. Why is that? Let's have a look. Custom. Yeah. Okay. So it's the whole customer complaint piece. I wonder if I take out, you know what? I'm just going to do a quick bit of testing, because I actually think in the real world, what I would probably do is I would probably classify these without customer complaint. And then I'd do a second run where I would ask the question, do we think this customer may be likely to complain or is complaining? So yeah, potentially I would remove complaint from it. Is it all customer complaint? Let's have a look. So false, yeah, okay. Customer unhappy, I agree with that. What's this one? So billing issue, customer stated they were overcharged. Yeah, that's the tricky one, isn't it? Customer complaint's really throwing it off. But the other ones that aren't customer complaint, it's done pretty well. It's done pretty well. Okay. Deepseek, so we're not gonna do anything. Well, you know what, let's just give 3B a try. Let's give 3.2 a try. It didn't do too well a moment ago. But yeah, wait, was this 3.2? Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, this is 3.2. This is a 3 billion parameter model. Okay, let's go back to well, now I'm even more impressed, because for a second there I thought we were using an 8 billion parameter Llama 3.1, but we were using a 3 billion parameter Llama 3.2. Okay. So now we're doing Llama 3.1, and so just for my own sanity, that is the 8 billion parameter model from Meta. Okay, cool. So back to it, it's going through all 20, quite a bit slower, but that's the trade-off, right? So am I going to be using a smaller model, which runs a bit quicker, or a larger model, which runs a bit slower? And that appears to have done quite well. So we've got customer complaint here, customer unhappy, stated they were overcharged. Yeah, I'd probably complain about that, true. As well. And yeah, customer complaint, customer reports that the GPS system is malfunctioning. They are complaining. I've got it down as vehicle issue, both kind of true. Overall, this is looking really nice. Yeah, this is looking fantastic. Now, that's both of the llamas, and they're doing pretty well overall. I'm expecting better performance from Deep. Well, am I? No, I'm probably expecting equal performance. And look, this is more of a tutorial on how I would approach the problem. But let's see what we can get out of, Deepseek R1. So this thing can take a really long time to run. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, sorry, just thinking out loud, Deepseek does do a whole heap of thinking. So I reckon what we'll probably have to do is let's grab a copy of this and let's make sure that we can build the necessary steps to extract the output from Deepseek, because it's going to need some extra steps. So I've got the Deepseek part here. Let's go ahead and make sure that's in here. Even so, I'm saying to Deepseek, you're a custom interaction classifier, only return JSON, no other text. It's still going to give me some funky stuff. So let's go ahead and quickly just grab out this bit of code here, response message content. And yeah, Deepseek seems to have returned. And we'll print that out just to make it a bit cleaner on the page. Okay. And yeah, okay, so category general inquiry. That's actually not too bad. That's actually not too bad. So the way I've been thinking about this is we've got this bit of text here. So we'll call this response text. And response text, okay, is basically this whole thing here. I'm looking for the word think, right? So I'm just going to say, let's find think. Okay, because that's the end of the thinking. We know that. So that's where think is. I'm going to give this one, I'm going to call this one think end. All right, so that's going to equal think end. And then we'll give ourselves a bit more space. And we'll say something like response text, give me everything after think end. And if I'm not mistaken, what's going to happen is we are going to have to account for how many letters are in think end. Okay, we could do some smarts around. Yeah, we could shortcut this and just say, you know what, let's just split it by that, and then just pick the last element in the list, so -1, and then we've kind of got it. I don't know how reliable that's going to be, but let's go ahead and for this one, let's go ahead and try that. So if we think about the response, that's the content that we're passing directly over. So this is JSON loads. Yeah, that's the output response, which will include all the thinking. And then what we're going to do is below that, we're going to give ourselves a bit of space, and we're going to have this response here. We'll call this one like string JSON, okay? And then what we're going to do is when we do JSON response equal JSON loads, we're going to pass that in, alrighty? And we're still going to ask for category, and we're still going to run this 10 times. And we'll see how it goes. I might need to fast forward this part, but if it all works well, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm not going to be back in a couple of minutes. I'm getting a lot of nuns here, so I don't know. I don't know what I've done. What have I done? Oh, look, I see exactly what I've done. I've left this as Llama 3.1. Yeah, that was an epic fail on my part. Make sure you pass in the right model when testing atoms. So let's go ahead, call that one Deepseek R1. Shift enter on that one, and if all goes well, we should start to see those categories start to print out to the screen. But again, this will take a little bit of time. Deepseek is not a quick model. I would not recommend it on a local machine, especially one as weak as an MacBook Air. But here it is, it's running now, and that looks, well, 1 for 1, looking pretty good. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, and we're back, and Deepseek has completed. So let's go ahead and run that one through, and let's see how well it did. Okay, so what do we got here? This is interesting. The customer wants to extend their rental. Now that is, ground truth does suggest that is a reservation change. Deepseek has come back and said the general inquiry. Okay, so not quite right there. I'm not too stressed about customer complaints. I'm happy with that. And then further down, we've got customer was upset. They received a blah, blah. And this has come back as vehicle issue, and we've got it tagged as customer complaint. So overall, only one incorrect, and it's this one here. And what's good about Deepseek is we can actually get a feel for what might have gone wrong. So if I have a look at, say, for example, this was case number, well, actually what we might do, just to make our lives a little bit easier, we might output this to CSV. We'll call this one the Deepseek output. Okay, don't need the actual index itself. And I'm going to open that one up, and let's have a look in Excel what might have gone wrong there. Okay, cool. So the one that got wrong that wasn't in relation to customer complaint was this one here. And what we've got access to is all of its thinking, which is a great thing to save, because then we can potentially modify the prompt to see if we can make it a bit more accurate. Okay, so let's have a look at this together. All right, let's tackle this problem. So I need to classify the customer interaction note into one of the given categories. The note says that the customer wants to extend their rental period by 2 days. Now, it's definitely a reservation change, isn't it? And we've got it listed here as a reservation change. Now, looking at the note, the customer is asking to extend their rental period by 2 days. This action isn't about payment issues or billing issues. It's also not a cancellation charge in reservation. It's cancellation in reservation, okay, because they are extending, not changing it. Okay, see, that thinking doesn't seem right to me. It's also not a cancellation or a change in reservation because they're extending, not changing it. Oh, it might even have us on a technicality. Reservation change. Let's quickly go back to the actual input. The customer wants to extend their rental period by 2 days. Extend their rental. It is a yeah, it's a funny one. I think and this is interesting. I'm actually now questioning myself. Since the customer is simply requesting an extension on their rental duration, this falls under the general inquiries about their booking. They might have questions about how they can extend the cost. But yeah, it's gone with general. Now, to really test this, what I might even do is I might run this through 10 times, just this one prompt, just to see if we get any variation on that particular outcome. So to do that, what we're going to do is where are we? Okay, so we've got the, we're going to iterate through all that. So let's make sure we get this right. To make that happen, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab out, am I going to grab out all this? Yeah, so what number is, yeah, to make this easier on ourselves, we might just limit, where are we? This is case, 1002. So what we might even do is we might say sample df is equal to df, and we've got our case number, okay, case underscore number, and we're going to isolate 1002, and we're going to go ahead and just filter the data frame. So now what we do is when we run this, we are only running on that one output. And what I want to see, is it going to give us this general inquiry again, or is it going to come back with what we believe it to be, which is a reservation change? Because, yeah, I'm like you, I'm very interested in what it comes back with. Okay, interesting. So the second time we ran it, it came back with reservation change. And I've been experiencing this a lot recently, where I might run it 5 or 10 times, and 70 or 80% of the time, it gives me the expected outcome, and 20 to 30% of the time it gives me another outcome. So what I might do is I might go ahead and just run this 10 times just to see if my theory, my hypothesis is true. Is this going to come back correct 7 or 8 times? So shift enter on that. Let's let this thing run all 10 times, and I'll come back in a moment once it's finished. Okay, and there we have it. It's finished running all 10 tests. And let's see if my theory is correct. And looking at this, again, small sample size, but it looks like I'm right. It looks like 8 out of 10 times it's coming back with reservation change, which is fascinating. Non-deterministic systems. We are getting the right response if we ask enough times. Now, for those who have some experience with these models, you might be thinking, well, what if you do some tricks with temperature and the top K and top P and the other parameters that you can sort of play with? And that's all sort of experimentation that we can do. But the takeaway from this one is, here's my approach to categorizing some text data. Here's how I would go about using different models. I would always say it's important to use ground truth, so having some sort of point of fact, but also acknowledging that even so, I categorize some of these as a general inquiry or whatever it was. Sometimes the large language models might surprise you and might say, actually, I think that's a complaint. And you go, well, you're not technically wrong. It could be seen as a complaint. So yes, very exciting times ahead. Another key takeaway, just before we wrap up, is don't be afraid don't lock into one model. You just seen how easy it was to use Llama 3.1, 3.2, and Deepseek all in the same code base. It could be that, given enough time, we ask the question 10 times of each model, we get 30 responses for one bit of text, and if 25 out of 30 sort of agree, that might be the answer. Look, I hope this was informative, useful. I hope you take something away from this. If you are new to Python or even data science and local large language models, make sure you subscribe. Drop a comment if you have any questions. I'm always keen to follow up in the comments and create more videos based on your feedback. Thank you so much. Don't be afraid to subscribe. It does help the channel grow, and I'll catch you in the next video.